So yes, I'll be making more NBA content. Specifically, the first round of the playoff has officially over. It's almost officially over, but I think every series is pretty much over except for the Cavaliers versus the Orlando Magic. So if you watch and you like this video, give a big round of applause to the Orlando Magic. That is pushing the Cavalier to Game 7 stuff. We all want to see Game 7. We all want to see excitement. No BS. No none of that. We don't want to hear any more nonsense or other NELCO BS. We don't want like sweep. No boring series. We want to see fun and exciting, right? So yeah, unfortunately that series go to 7. So and then we already start with the conference semifinal today. Denver Nuggets versus the Timberwolves. That's gonna be an exciting one. But where the Timberwolves play at the high altitude. Good luck to the Timberwolves being the Nuggets, and I believe in them. So yeah, so far, I mean, I promised to make every individual series, but looked like I was too slow, too lazy, and I decided to make every recap in just one little video. That way you don't have to click into like multiple videos, and it's just better that way if you just convert to one. So that way I don't have to upload like ridiculous amounts of videos on YouTube, right? And as the series goes on and on in the playoff, more teams eliminated. It's just much easier to focus on every series because now there's less series and less teams, and all the pretenders are gone in the playoff, and the NBA will get much more spicier and interesting, right? So yeah, I think I pretty much predicted, like, I say most of the series I got was correct because I've been following NBA without watching it. I've been following on YouTube and here and there, and I've been knowing what's been going on in the NBA, right? So yeah, so let's see. So there's total of 8 series, right? So I'll tell you which one's done. They're pretty much all done except for the Cavs versus Magic. So let's go over with the Thunders, versus the Pelicans, right? Yeah, I wasn't surprised, like I'm actually not surprised that the OKC Thunder, swept the Pelicans, right? I know the Pelican, they're just unserious and they just have injury problem, right? Zion looks really overweight, and in the future, I think the Pelicans gonna get rid of Zion, right? What else to say, right? The Pelican didn't even deserve to be in the playoffs, right? The OKC Thunder just like literally like beat the Pelican. They blew them out every single game. I mean, the first game was like very interesting. Okay, they kept that was a very entertaining game, and then the rest of the game was just technically like the Thunder just dominated the Pelicans, right? I feel like this is the reason why the Thunder's only beat the Pelicans by 2 points in the first game is because yeah this is like their first time being a player with this new type of roster, like yeah that's the game that the Pelicans should have won because if you've been in the player for the first time ever in history, then is this your first time doing it? I expect failures and all stuff, but it just shows you how terrible the Pelicans are, right? I mean, this is okay. I think game one is probably the OKC, in my opinion, the worst game they ever experienced because it's just the first time they don't know how it is, and then the second game, they just blew the Pelican out, and the Pelicans still score only 92 points. I mean, both game, like Pelican only scored like 92 points, both at OKC. The first two games, Pelicans scored like 92 points, but the only difference in game two is that the Thunder scored 30 more points, so it's very scripted, right? Yeah, and then game four, the Pelicans just like they just probably give up, and the OKC Thunder only scored like they didn't even care game four, so that series that I'm talking about OKC versus Thunder, there's nothing much to say. It's just pretty much boring, and the Thunders, they play a little bit better than I thought, but it's still, not that impressive. And I got a feeling that, yeah, the Thunder beating the Pelicans is not that impressive. Even though they're number one, right? And even though even though they seems to be, very weak and vulnerable, they show. But I think when you go deeper in the playoff, the Thunder will show its vulnerability, right? Right now they're not showing you because they're being. I think the Pelicans are probably the weakest team in the playoff right now, in my opinion, right? Aside from the Phoenix Suns, right? So let's go over with the Clipper versus the Mavericks, and I expect the Mavericks to beat them in 5 games, but somehow the Clipper pushed it to Game 6, and yeah, I noticed that the Mavericks have a little bit of a defense issue, and they still have a lot of holes and gaps, right? And I think for the longest time the Clipper owned the Mavericks, but now the Mavericks finally beat the Clippers, right? And sending them home in game one, like Clipper every time when it comes to playoff, there's always something wrong with Clippers, whether it's injury problem, chemistry issue, or whatever that is, right? They need to they need to blow this out, man. Like, I know that James Harden and Paul George is it's just who they are, right? They don't really show up to playoff. They're just a regular season players, right? So yeah, so let me go over the series, right? So yeah, if they have Kawhi Leonard, maybe the Clipper could have pushed Game 7, but I never trusted the Clippers, to be honest with you, right? I never trusted them. It's the same old movie again and again, like they do well regular season, the playoffs, like they don't go deep in the playoff, to be honest with you. They always exit way earlier than their than expectation that was put on them, right? The first game, like Clippers was making like every single shot, and this is why they beat the Dallas in game one. So yeah, Dallas is probably have defense issues, and like I said, I think I'll repeat that again. Game two, Clipper folded again. Like that's the game they should have won, and game three Dallas beat them, and then surprisingly game four, James Harden and Paul George just show up. I feel like James Harden and Paul George do show up playoff, but it's only like the first few games, and then like whenever it comes to game, especially if it comes to game 5, game 6, like I see James Harden and Paul George play well for a while, but then when it comes to like the most important moments like game 5, game 6, or game 7, they folded, right? They just disappear, like plain old disappeared. In game 5, the Dallas just like blew out the Clippers, and then game 6, another blowout win, an easy victory. So nothing much to say there. And Kyrie's been balling out. I feel like it's the only difference why the Mavericks won is because they got a decent role player. They got they have a little bit more bigs, and also they got Kyrie Irving. So that was the biggest difference of how the Mavericks overcome the Clipper this series, right? And then we gotta talk about the Celtic versus the Miami Heat, right? And yeah, I it's just no surprise that the Celtics just gentle sweep the Heat, and I knew that the Heat would probably still won game, but I didn't know that they won it in Boston Celtics. So the Celtics are a bit exposed. I knew that the Heat would just take one game, and that's pretty much it. Like the Celtics just control the rest of the series. Nothing much to explain there. Yeah, I knew that the Heat are just going nowhere without Jimmy Butler. Being injured. So yeah, that was just like a sweet victory, but I feel like whoever comes out for Cavs versus Magic series, like they have no chance of beating the Celtics. Just to be honest with you. So yeah, and then I got the Bucks versus Pacer, and I originally picked the Pacers. Being the sixth, that didn't surprise me at all because Bucks just has issues, right? They have defense issues. Giannis is not there, and Damian Lillard. Let me go over that series real quick before I talk about the upcoming series. So yeah, so the Bucks actually won game one, and then game two, Pacer beat the Bucks, and then it did have some overtime in game three. Pacer won again. I mean, Pacer just do their own stuff. This is why they beat the Bucks in six, right? They only lost like one. I mean, they just have to win one game at the Bucks, and this series is pretty much over with, right? So, and you just have to protect their home court, which exactly what the Pacer did, right? Even though they got blown out by game five, to a bunch of role play, that just exposed the Pacer. The Pacers, I mean, if the entire Bucks was healthy, then the Pacer has no business, being should have been eliminated already. But yeah, the Bucks did expose the Pacers. It's just the role player without any superstar. They just blew out the Pacer in game five, and then Pacer again blew out the Bucks in game six. So that just shows you everything that the Milwaukee Bucks did not need Damian Lillard. Like they should have never made that trade, to be honest with you, because Damian Lillard seems to be a really big issue for the Bucks, right? And you want to know why? It's because of the defense, right? And the Bucks just gave up their important asset that made them success in the first place, just to get Damian Lillard. So sometimes trading for the star is just not worth it at all. Just like the Suns, right? They have high expectations of the Phoenix Suns going to the finals and winning a championship, but they got totally swept in the first round. I feel like the old Phoenix Suns, roster like a few years ago was better than this roster as of right now, right? Like you just need good depth, and you just need to build good chemistry around this one specific superstar, right? Not like building a super team, not getting like super stack and something like that, and it does not guarantee championship. It does not, right? So that's where I'm trying to explain where this backfire, the Bucks. Even though, Chris Middleton was very big in the series, they got past Siakam, and let's see, how the Yeah, I knew that the Pacers are not going to beat the Bucks easily, even though the Bucks are injured, because the Pacers, to me as a casual, they just have, defense's problem, right? So yes, and then I will go over, the Knicks versus, the 76ers, right? Let's see how that series goes. And the Knicks actually beat the Pacers, but then, I know it's a 6-game series. I know that this could have gone to 7, but the series is super close. I think this is one of the closest series, out of all of other series, right? And that's why I was picking 50-50, and I wasn't sure who's gonna come out of the series, Knicks versus 76ers, right? Yeah, the series is a lot closer than you think, especially if you watch the game, right? So yeah, just because the series end in 4 or 5, 6 or 7 game or whatever that is, it may look like a sweep, but it's actually a lot closer than you think, right? And a lot of these games that the Sixers and the New York Knicks play, either side can just take a win, right? And yeah, just a team having one extra game or one extra win can change the whole dynamic of the series, right? And who's gonna advance and who's gonna get eliminated, right? So this is one heck of a series. I think the biggest leader for the Knicks is Jalen Brunson, and they do not have the Julius Randle, which is why the Knicks are struggling against the Sixers, right? The 76ers, they have Joel Embiid, they have Tyrese Maxey's, and they got a bunch of good role play there. Kyle Lowry, Nicholas Batum. The Sixers look really dangerous, and they just kept they make the Knicks run, make a run for their own monies and season, right? A good run. So game 1, the Knicks and the 76ers, it was only like a 7-point differential. Then the 7, and then the Knicks just won at some buzzer or something like that in game 2, and then game 3, Joel Embiid had a monster game, dropping 50 points, leading to 114 to 125, and then game 4, the Knicks stole at the 76ers. I feel like the 76ers should have won either. They could have won game 2, they were leading a bit, then the Knicks made a phantom comeback. So after the next 4-game series, it is this series so close, I could not explain. The 76ers could be up 3-1, but in this case the Knicks are actually up 3-1. If the 76ers are 3-1 by game 4, then the Knicks has no chance of being the 76ers, right? And the 76ers could have won either game 5 or game 6. Most likely the Sixers could have won game 6, coming at their home, getting in the crowd, and could have ended the Knicks right there, right? But the Knicks won it very close, they were up 3-1, and they knew that the 76ers had no answer. Even though they took game 5, and then game 6 they go back to 76ers, and then the Knicks won there, got the job done, right? So yeah, I think the Knicks was I overheard that the Knicks was a little cocky in game 5. They were pushing pains, and they thought they have a secure victory, but then the 76ers just beat them. And I wonder how did the 76ers win game 5, right? It's Tyrese Maxey that scored 46 points. That's just very unheard of. Thanks to Tyrese Maxey, saving the 76ers, right? Even though they play overtime, but man, this guy just, you like seeing young, no-namers, ball out, just to save series and making the series even more exciting than it has to be. So yeah, so I think that's an 18-minute done of me recapping every series in the playoffs. So aside, I already talked about the Timberwolves versus Denver Nuggets. So yeah, I say both those series are probably boring stuff, but the Suns are just they're nowhere near the Timberwolves, and then the Nuggets just keeping the Lakers alive. To me, that wasn't a gentle sweep, because I already explained my older video, right? And besides, Lakers was mostly leading, not the Denver Nuggets. So yeah, so let me talk about the other series, Thunders, versus the Mavericks, right? And then I got Pacers versus Knicks, and then I cannot talk about the Celtics right now, it's because they don't have an opponent yet. So if you look at the NBA bracket, so don't need to explain that again. So anyway, you want me to talk about Thunder versus Mavericks and Pacers versus Knicks, right? So which one should I go first? So obviously I just randomized, save best for the last. The West is too tough, so I'm gonna have to pick with the East. Doesn't matter, at the end of the day, you're gonna hear about everything what I have to say in this video. So just some people don't care who I choose, so I just choose Pacers versus Knicks, right? So who you think I got? This is like pretty obvious, I got the Knicks, because the 76ers, even though they're the same seed, but they could, like, I see that a lot of people fear that, 76ers, like, if they score like a couple more positions or a couple more balls, and if they play like a little bit more better, like, they would have overcome the Knicks, right? And also the Knicks have your injury problem, but even though the Knicks, you'll have a little holes and injuries, but I still think that they should, take care of the Pacers, without a problem, right? So I don't think this is not gonna be a sweep. This is obviously not gonna be a 4 game. Pacers will put up a fight in some of those series. I feel like the Knicks. I wouldn't be surprised if the Knicks blew out the Pacers in one of those games. One of those, Knicks wins, right? Just based on, Pacers plays no defense. You simply cannot be a championship if you just only have offense and play like very minimal defense. I feel like the Knicks plays a better defense than the Indiana Pacers, right? So this is why it's very easy, and it's probably gonna be. I think the Knicks, like next opponent versus Pacers, I feel like that's gonna go a lot more faster and easier than the 76ers, I feel like that's going to be easiest series for the Knicks. So, yeah. And I'll tell you why. So, you're saying that if the Knicks has an easier opponent on the Pacers than the 76ers, that means the series should have ended what if it's not a sweep. So, obviously, I would say Knicks in 5. So, But then I won't be shocked if the Knicks actually beat the Pacers in 4 games. But then, to be honest with you, like, sweeping a team in the playoff is actually really hard, right? Sweeping a team in the playoff is super hard. Like, you can have to blow them out. You cannot keep the game close. You have to, like, eliminate the other team's, confidence and all stuff. That team needs to have, like, numerous of problems to order not to win a single game of playoff, and the lopside between an opponent and opponent, like some team will have made no adjustment and all that stuff. All these factors has to happen, for a team, just to get sweet, and also injuries, right? Yeah, I feel like the Knicks are probably gonna win, their home games, and then when it comes to I predict, like, when it comes to to the Indiana Pacers, maybe the Pacers will keep the series close. I think the Knicks will like lead the Pacers a little bit, but then the Pacers may come back and beat the Knicks. So yeah, so that's why I got the Knicks in 5. But Pacers could be a little bit surprising. They could be a little dangerous, and I don't think this series is not gonna go past 6. I'll be surprised if it goes to game 7. So yeah, if the Knicks somehow accidentally drag the series to 6 and 7 game, which they supposed not to on the Pacers, then they're probably not. They're probably a fraudulent team, and they're not gonna beat the Boston Celtics for sure. So if the highly assuming Celtic either face Cavaliers or Magic, just beat them, manhandling their own business, easily, and then yeah. So anyway, let's go over with the Thunders, versus the Mavericks and who I got out of that series. So I've been paying attention to more about Mavericks and Thunders. The reason why I don't pay too much about Thunders, the Pelicans pathetic. The Pelicans, they cannot win a single game, and also yeah, so just I think because the Thunder had a very easy pull, and then the Mavericks, they're kind of like fraud, when it comes to defense, and the Thunders, they just need to find a way how to stop Luka and how to stop Kyrie. I mean, stopping these two players is very hard, it's tough. So Let me think. Let me think. Who's gonna come out of this series, right? I say that this series could be very close. It could go to Game 7. This has a much higher chance of going to Game 7 than comparing you to any other 4 series. Has maybe a 25% chance, if not more, right? So yeah, that's a decent, but I think that the series will go to at least, it has to be at least 5 games, right? Or most likely, 6 games, right? The Thunders are young and the Mavericks are, have experience. I think because the Mavericks got Kyrie Irving and they got Luka that been to, playoffs multiple times, I won't be surprised if the Mavericks actually eliminate the Thunders, right? Yeah, because we all know that the Thunders are too young, They haven't not been to the conference semifinals before, so yeah, they're pretty like, I feel like the reason why I say close there because let me put this, in this is a metaphor. So the Mavericks are like the Cavaliers and the Thunders are like the Magic, right? The Thunders are the younger team than the Mavericks, so I feel like whoever have more experience will advance, to the conference finals. Right, so this is gonna be another repeat of Cavalier versus Magic, right? So for me, let me look at this. So the Thunder, they got Shaz, Gillies, Alexander, they got a bunch of good role players. They got Shedrick Holmgren, and I think for this series, I'll be rooting for the Thunders, but I don't think they're not gonna beat the Mavericks. I just got a feeling, right? I hope I'm wrong. I root for the Thunders, I root for, the underdogs. Just, make this series much more fun. Just to get a lot more people, to like me and respect me, right? All these young teams. It's so fun when the young teams, like, surprisingly beat, an old experienced team, right? I feel like the Thunders are gonna be, a very dangerous team in the next coming years. It could be as soon as next year's, They may actually get to the finals, But sorry if I sound delusional, but I'm not a Thunder fan. I mean, Thunder fans will appreciate, like what I said about their teams, and all stuff. So, yeah, I think experience matters the most, It's not like how good and talented you are, right? The talent's like, one thing, like if the Thunder overtake the Mavericks, that means they must have really good, talent. Must be really disciplined team. But if this team is like indisciplined, then by common sense, I think the Mavericks could have beat them in 5 games. So yeah, but I hope Thunders, will make this series, to Game 6, right? It could be a weird scenario where, Thunder, they win all their home games and Mavericks win all their home games, but yeah, if it goes to 7, then I will put my money on the Mavericks. Because Kyrie and Luka, Kyrie is a very clutch player, which is why he got LeBron James the championship in 2016. So I have to give Kyrie credit too. So Kyrie's gonna go crazy and all that stuff, and the Thunder may not actually know what to do in Game 7, right? Or it feels like the Sacramento Kings, versus the Golden State Warriors, right? Of, last year, right? The Mavericks are the Warriors situation, and then the Thunders are just like Sacramento King. I remember that the Warriors just barely, like, sneakily, beat the Kings, in Game 7, right? So, this is why this video go long, because I have to explain a lot more details, like, why the team will win, what will happen, right? So, Timberwolf, so let me go over 3 series that is coming, in the conference semifinals. So I got the Timberwolf in about, 5 to 6 game. I cannot, disrespect, the defending champs Nuggets. The Timberwolf will, like, yeah, the Nuggets are probably gonna still like 1 or 2 games away from the Timberwolf, even though Timberwolf looks clearly better than the Mavericks, Thunders. I have to pick the Mavericks, even though they were struggling against, the fraudulent, Clippers. And then, easy take, I put 85% series on the Knicks to take care of the Indiana Pacers, right? So, yeah, in my opinion, I won't be surprised if the Knicks has like about over a 90% chance being, the Pacers, just simply, just because, the Knicks have, much better coach and much more better, plays and defense. So, peace out.